Well, Hong Kong movies. Let's Hong Kong movies is like Hong Kong, the city is so fast paced, and we tends to sometimes make several films at the same time. Unlike in the West, where you basically focus on one film and you're contractual to one film, but in Hong Kong, you could be doing 3, 4 films at the same time. You might come on the set to do this film in the morning, and then in the afternoon you be off to another film. It's very difficult to build a relationship. And then another thing is Hong Kong is so small, the actors, and we don't really hang out in a circle. We have friends, or I speak for me, I have friends outside of the circle. I have very few friends in the circle because you wanted to have a private life as well as being professional in the industry. Well, that fire scene in Iron Monkey, well, obviously is very dangerous, right? It's like any other kung fu movies. I'd have to say, particularly Hong Kong action movies is a lot more dangerous than I would say any other action movies in the world. Simply because we're very sophisticated of making action movies. Our standard, we set that standard quite high. Maybe it's just the way, it's a tradition. You have a character hopping over a chair, not good enough. How about hopping over the chair and land on one foot? Not good enough. Or how about hopping over the chair and land on one foot, then blindfolded? I mean, it's constantly for years and years and years, kung fu movies or Hong Kong action movies, we have a tendency to always top the previous ones. I think that's why you look at the Hong Kong influence to Hollywood films today, is so taken by the flavor, the style. I would assume that people are a little bit tired of, just simple, holding up 2 guns and boom boom and a couple of explosions. You don't want to pay to see a movie to see that. You don't want to pay to see films where you're constantly seeing something more exciting than the last one. Again, that fire scene, yes, it was very dangerous, and also you got to remember I was working with the top director who specialized in these type of films, Junmo Ping. So making a kung fu movies in Hong Kong is hard enough already. Making a Hong Kong movie with Junmo Ping in Hong Kong is even harder. There's also something I'd like to mention is also the budget that we have. An average Hong Kong movie. Iron Monkey, we had a pretty good budget, Hong Kong standard-wise, but compared to any Hollywood films, it's popcorn. That budget, the Iron Monkey budget was 2.5 million. I mean, that's nothing. But yes, it was quite dangerous, but that's just the rules of being in such, I guess, being in that position where the whole world is looking at you. You just got it. It's like being a great stuntman, or being a great athlete or boxers. You have certain expectation to live up to, and being, I guess, a well-known martial art actor worldwide. I have a standard to live up to. Junmo Ping have a standard to live up to. I mean, and Choi Hak's names have a name, his name to live up to. So with that kind of combination, yeah, it was like being in a battleground. Well, using the umbrella techniques, before Jet Li's era, there was Guan Dat Hing, right, back in his black and white Wong Fei Hong Kong Kung Fu classics, and everybody knows that Guan Dat Hing carries a umbrella, sort of like a cane, is actually a symbol of seniority, a symbol of master. A person reached to a certain level, you have a cane. If you see kings, you see general. So Wang Da Hing in his area, he actually symbolized that by using the umbrella. Then I guess Jet Li used it once and twice too. Then of course by playing Jet Li's father, Jet Li's characters, Wang Keiying's father of Wang Feihong, that umbrella is very, very important. But for me, it was sort of another challenge because, Jet Li done it. What am I going to do with it? Well, I was pretty fortunate that I always have a unique martial art philosophy. I never really believed in one particular style like Bruce Lee. That's why I'm a big fan of Bruce Lee. I think it's the way you interpret each styles and each weaponry. Right? If it's an umbrella, then by all means, it's going to be interpreted by me through my body and mind as one, and then I will interpret that umbrella the way I controls it. It's written all over that umbrella. It could be this chair. I could hop up and flip that chair over. It becomes another weapon. So it's not really the object. So I think that's why when you saw that scene, you saw a identity there. You saw a distinguished performances there. I said, how come the way I delivered that umbrella was slightly different? Because I was performing, I was the one that performing that umbrella. I think, if you look at other scene, like if you go back to Once Upon a Time in China, part 2, when I created that rope. Well, the same thing as the rope. It was just, to me, rope is just an extension of your arm, just like the umbrella, just like that staff, that stick techniques when I fought Jet Li. So no difference. It's just your philosophy. It's really not it's not the objects. I guess many of my fans and many of the hardcore martial art fans know me specializing in kicking on screen because I think, I've always been a big admirer for kicking ability, all the way back when I was a child watching Bruce Lee, my idol. And I believe kicking really identified a person's ability, as far as the true ability in martial arts, as opposed to just upper body movement. Because upper body movement, sometimes you can cheat it with a little bit of camera angles and different way of cutting the films, or the person you are performing with, he could come off with a great stunt and still makes you look half decent. But for the kickings, you can't really cheat to the audience. You got to have a certain amount of physical ability. So I always wanted to really make a mark on martial art films that I do carry authentic martial arts. So let's go back to Iron Monkey, that particular scene. That was right after Win Mo Ping came off on Once Upon a Time Part China. It was really, really successful, and everybody known Jet Li was the man who portrayed Wang Feihong so successfully that it was actually a challenge for us to try to come up with something more unique, because the things in Once Upon a Time were so great that there was a lot of people doubting that we could even come up with something even close to it. So I think I had a meeting with Jun, and I recalled one of the famous techniques that Wang Feihong, the character in Once Upon a Time in China, it's called shadow legs leg kick, or shadow legs kicking, or leg, or something like that, which Jet Li performed it both in the part 2 and part 1 of Once Upon a Time in China. But to me, those performances were purely relying on some of the wire works and different way of cutting the films, right? Credit to Choi Hak and his editor. So I said to Jun Ping, I said, okay, let's try to do something, let's do shadow legs kick again, but this time with a different approach. And he said, well, Jet did it, Choi Hak did it, why are we doing it again? So I said, because the term shadow legs kick, what do you mean by shadow legs kick, right? Let's really show the audience the kicking speed so fast that it's shadowless, perfectly describing the techniques. And how would we do that? I mean, you can only kick so fast. I said, well, obviously we can go kick so fast, but there's a combination, there's a collaboration you can bring to the performances, right? Yes, this is a movie, we have to exaggerate a bit, this is a period film, we can dramatize the movement, but at the same time, let's try to keep that certain martial arts true ability and reveal that to the audience. So I came up with a suggestion to Yu Mo-ping. I said, why don't you just set the camera? I mean, let's try to speed up the camera, but at the same time, speed up the camera to crank it down to, I think it was 16 frames per second. I think there was a couple of takes, it was down to 14 frames per second. And he was saying to me, well, but then you look like Charlie Chaplin. I said, well, not if you position your body properly and the person who's reacting properly by maintaining your certain part of the body part still and just executing a certain body part. I had a strong confidence that as the result, with great kicking abilities, with that kind of cranking down, it would create a absolutely never been seen before type of on-screen performances, right? Now, if you remember that particular scenes, it was not like, it wasn't cut together where, okay, 3 kicks over here, 2 kicks over there, and another angle over here. There you go. You have a shadow legs kick made up of 50 kicks combination. It was a still shot, basically just a solid square flat shot, and all the audience is seeing is the character Wang Keiying kicking with his leg, standing on one leg and the other one kicking the opponent. And as a result, a lot of people in front of the camera and behind the camera has been telling me that scene is one of the greatest martial arts comeback scenes and of this decade. So I, looking back at some of the films that's been produced outside of Hong Kong and in Hong Kong, I have to agree with that. Again, let's go back to the origins of all these so-called Hong Kong movies to the Westerner, non-Chinese eyes. What is Hong Kong movies? To most outside of Hong Kong movies is Kung Fu movies, because we're famous for it. And most of these Kung Fu movies were all produced and directed by people who comes from this culture, the Beijing opera culture. And Beijing opera culture is a way of a very dramatized expressions. I think there's a combination of Yuen Mo-ping's direction when you're talking about bringing that settledness comedies. As you know, most of the Hong Kong history of kind of modified from Beijing opera or Cantonese opera, and Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, and all those seniors. And most of these opera requires a lot of exaggerated, dramatized physical expressions. That's why when you see Jackie Chan, still up to today, when you see his performance, regardless if it's a period film or a modern film, he's playing a cop with a gun, he still reacts the same way. I mean, that has a lot to do with his childhood traditional Beijing opera training. And Yuen Mo-ping actually was among one of them, right? But we're dealing with a new generation of audience. You're dealing with the more sophisticated. They are all educated by Hollywood films, right? You also have floods of new directors and actors coming out of TVB and ATV, and the whole newer generation. Choi Hak is one of them. Kind of took the traditional way of Hong Kong filmmaking to another level. So, but there was still a lot of transition period. So I wanted to make it a little different. I wanted to, I was in I did a couple of TV series, so I had a pretty good TV training. And TV training really requires heavy drama on a daily basis, training, performances. So I wanted to distinguish myself from my seniors in those kung fu films. I wanted to bring serious drama into the kung fu period films. That's probably why you saw what I did in Iron Monkey. Iron Monkey is probably one of my favorite. I've done some pretty bad films. I can't sit back and claim that I'm totally too dedicated to my art. But then again, I think every actor made some bad films. I don't think any actor can come up and say that I've not done one bad film. It's impossible. Sometimes you make a wrong choice for the wrong reasons. But Iron Monkey was definitely one of my, I guess, a film that I can be proud of. But it was, frankly speaking, Iron Monkey was I still have some unfulfillment in that film. Something that I would like to even push further. Maybe during that time I was still trying to explore as a director, and I was only as an actor and collaborated with Yuan Ping as the action director. Now I look back this is many years before. I've done many directing jobs and produced it. Now I look back, and the way I look at life, I think it's very important as a director to direct is his whole perspective in an overview of life. Because everything you do on films, everything you demonstrate on films is a reflection of life. So I guess I'm more mature now and look at things differently. So I have different expectations. So if I have an opportunity to remake Iron Monkey, I feel pretty confident that I can probably take it to another level.